Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uttam dhammam sangham namassami. So, thank you, Ajahn and Isabel, for inviting us. And I just heard about a few minutes ago, before the gathering here, that I was going to present something. So here I am. So I've been delving into the 5 spiritual faculties recently. I've been kind of doing a study, my own study, and sharing what I'm gleaning from the suttas, really to investigate how are these faculties applied in our lives, in our meditation. And you might have noticed that Ayya Niyyānika had brought in some of those elements of 5 faculties during the meditation. So starting with saddha, which is often translated as faith or confidence or conviction, I think is another, trust. It's a quality that sometimes brings people to the Dhamma. We meet someone, we hear the teaching. In the suttas it talks about the saparisa, the good person, the teacher who is inspiring to us. So we hear the Dhamma, and then the saddha arises. And this is an inspiration, enthusiasm that arises. I think, no, that's chanda. It's related to chanda. So then we investigate further ourselves. And the second Indriyā is Virya. And that's energy, effort. That particularly, it's the energy to, it's a funny how it's talked about in the sutta as a bringing up the desire to, or generating the desire, the chanda, to abandon the unwholesome states, abandon the unwholesome states and to develop the wholesome. So this is like starting with our saddha, we get interested in the teaching, and then we start looking at ourselves carefully. And this is the sati, this awareness, bringing the awareness to our mind, and then having the energy when we see unwholesome states arising to let them go, to abandon them. First we investigate them carefully and see what's going on in our hearts, our minds, and then we're able to untangle that. It's not a forceful, the virya is not forceful, but it's this determination to purify our hearts. And then as we purify the hearts, and the wholesome qualities have room to develop, and sometimes developing those wholesome qualities will also, it's kind of, I know what's coming to mind is when you take probiotics, right? And you have an overgrowth of harmful bacteria. So you're taking the probiotic metta and karuna, you're taking in loving kindness, you're developing loving kindness, and then that replaces or displaces the unwholesome states. But that's the sati that helps us with that virya. The virya and sati work almost, sometimes it seems indistinguishable. When I look in the suttas, there's a simile of the gatekeeper and then I kind of think about it, maybe there's a watch person up in the tower and they see the uncouth characters coming, and that would be the sati. So that's the awareness, seeing the unwholesome qualities arising. And then the weary is like the gatekeeper, actually, and they have to shut the door. Or if the unruly people come in, they're the ones that have to escort them out and say, no, you don't belong here. Excuse me. It is so the weary and the sati work very closely together. Sati is said to oversee all the other spiritual qualities. So there's kind of might see in sequence, we've had the faith or the saddha or the confidence, and then the virya and the sati working together, and then there's the samadhi. So the samadhi, it doesn't necessarily have to be jhanic samadhi, but the bringing up the qualities of calm and peacefulness and settledness, and also this collectedness of mind to balance out that energetic quality of the other ones. Otherwise, it might get into hyperdrive. And so, throughout the day, not only just on the cushion, we see the mind going, and I've got to abandon these unwholesome qualities, and why did they keep coming back? And so just like coming back in touch with the body, coming back in touch with the breath, or bringing up thoughts of metta or compassion. One thing for compassion is a really wonderful quality to direct towards oneself when you're feeling really jangled, or you're really working hard to purify yourself. So there's the element in the Brahma Viharas that's calming, bringing peace to our hearts. So just taking a moment to stop and maybe feel the feet on the floor, you're behind on the chair if you're at work or something, like whatever you're doing, standing or walking or sitting. And just take that moment to pause. And this is helping to bring up, they all work together, the 5 spiritual faculties. So you're bringing that calm to balance out the virya. And then as we're doing this deep investigation of ourselves, understanding arises. This is panya, the wisdom faculty. So wisdom and saddha, the panya and the saddha balance each other out. Because we could, if I just have faith in a teacher, the kind of gullible faith in a teacher, or not really deeply understanding, have my assumptions about what the Buddha's teachings are, and I'm going on kind of gullibility, then it's not going to take me very far. I'm not going to do that inner work that I was talking about. So the panya and saddha are paired in the commentaries to balance each other out, and the virya, or the energy or effort, and the samadhi balance each other out. I don't have a good one word for samadhi. There's a stillness. Some people say concentration. A lot of people object to that translation. But it's kind of the first 3 are balanced by the samadhi, and then the wisdom also. They're all like a team of horses and the charioteer. So you have the 2 in there's a sutta, or it's I think it's in the book of verses, or the first pair of horses is saddha, or faith. If you can imagine these horses, and the other one is wisdom, faith and wisdom, And then the second two are energy and samadhi. And then the charioteer is sati, mindfulness. So you can imagine this team working together. And it's said that it's actually these verses are talking about the Noble Eightfold Path, but these spiritual faculties are actually contained in the Noble Eightfold Path. Sada isn't particularly mentioned, but it's an essential element. But the other four are within the Noble Eightfold Path. So you have this team of horses, and it says to take us to Nibbana. So if you look in the suttas, it says the 5 spiritual faculties will help us eradicate the hindrances, free us from the fetters, and all these. There's a whole list of repetitions about how great those 5 spiritual faculties are. So it's the work we do in our practice. I think this is, along with the ethics. Ethics is assumed, I think. Our ethical conduct is assumed because we can't get anywhere without that. That may be the fodder for the horses or something like that. I don't know. we need it, you know. So, or maybe the good meal at the end of the road when the charioteer has gotten to the destination, but just that promise of that meal at the end of the road, or the paycheck or whatever. So, these faculties work as a team, and then the sati oversees it all, and they're kept in balance by their counterpoints. So. I think we're supposed to be doing a tag team. I don't know if either of you have something that you would like to add to the...
Something sparked to me when you were talking about... sorry, I'll do the microphone. Something sparked in me when you were talking about the word team. You know, because I do see this as, of course, we need to cultivate this team within us, the parts of us that are helping to balance each other. You know, we've got these various psychological things, but the parts all need to be working in the same direction. But it struck me with that word team that it's also like when Ajahn Nisaba was asking for volunteers, those are the ones with energy right now to bring this up. You know, others have brought the meal, set up the chairs. So there's a team, a Dhamma team. And I find that with you, Ayya, at the Vihara, is that sometimes one of us has got the energy to, sure, I can work a little bit on the other end. I might be the one that says, I just got to go lay down. You know? And so we're balancing each other out and moving the Vihara forward. And here you're moving Clear Mountain forward. You know, the mindfulness is there amongst it all. And we can see where we get a little off when collectively we've dropped the ball on our mindfulness. And we've got each other to kind of then say, oh, we could pay a little more attention to this. We could give this a little bit more care. And then out of it, it's both balancing and it's sequential. The wisdom that arises when our confidence grows collectively and in ourselves. When we've got that right level of energy and efforting, when the stilling, the fact that we sit together here and also at the Vihara in stilling, you know, it imbues a quality that makes it possible for the wisdom to arrive and to arise and to then go out into our actions. So this balancing faculty, I hadn't really thought of it as a group dynamic before. I had as the internal group, but I'm seeing it can be really supportive for our Dhamma communities too. What do you think on that? Or
that's quite beautiful. Yeah. So that's the internal working with the spiritual faculties, and then the team. That's as a group, as a group of meditators and support for the development of a monastery. And then where is it leading us? Why are we doing it? It's leading us to awakening. Is it leading us to freedom of our hearts, to kindness, acts of kindness towards one another? So, so when you have, that's the destination, that's the idea of that team of horses. If you think it's not just kind of directionless. So we have a direction, and we won't know it till we get there. But we know that we have enough confidence because people ahead of us tell us it's there. Describe it. Can you imagine the time before? At the time of the Buddha, people were walking long distances, and then they may only do that one travel once because it takes months and even years to cross the country. But they said, well, there's this wonderful city, beautiful city with all these wonderful people in it and all these opportunities. So you just go on the sadha. This is another. So that inspires you to get going. So you need to rouse up the energy to do it. And then you have to be really attentive. As you go on your way, you're not going to get off track. There's a bar along the way or a shopping mall or something, and you just get lost along the way and forget where you're going. No, you have to stay on the path, right? So the mindfulness is keeping us moving forward, and then the samadhi is which helps us pace ourselves and helps us to bring clarity to our hearts. So I love the similes and but so the samadhi, and then the wisdom we learn along the way from our direct experience as we're walking the path. But we have to keep going. We can't just find a comfortable place along the way and forget that we had this journey that we had set out on. So is it time? We could. I'm not sure about the timing, but okay. So since I didn't prepare, this is all just spontaneous. Yes, please.
No, the 5 spiritual faculties. I don't think we've talked about them before, but they're called the Indriyas, and they're kind of the key. Like the Buddha speaks about how fast, he speaks about 4 modes of practice. You have slow and painful. So that's one looks at the repulsiveness of food and contemplates death, and one's faculties, Indriya, are weak, and so one progresses slowly. Then there's pleasant and slow, which is one cultivates the 4 jhanas, but one's 5 Indriyas are weak, and so progresses slowly, but eventually attains awakening. And then pleasant and fast and painful and fast, and the difference there being that one's Indriyas are strong. And Venerable Sariputta was pleasant and quick, and Venerable Moggallana was painful and quick. And I think many of us are a good painful and slow. but the Buddha said even though one progresses, goes against the stream, and weeps with a tearful face, even so one continues to practice and attains awakening. And it's very humanizing. You read the suttas and there's all these stories of monastics attaining right away, hearing a Dhamma talk and suddenly they're awakened, and you read that and you're like, wow, that'd be nice. That's like one sentence. But you read the Vinaya and the story of these elder monks and nuns, and you have many, many stories of monastics who practiced their whole lives and had a hard time remaining in robes, who did their best and became discouraged, and then they just kept on practicing with faith and attain awakening. And it's very heartening to see that. And I would just say one, I think, really beautiful word to bring into this kind of discussion is, with these 5 Indriya, the 5th, you talked about the balance, Ayya, between Panya, wisdom, discernment, and Saddha, faith, confidence. And I feel like our culture stresses Panya, wisdom, so much. And when you see people who are in the grips of addiction or depression, often there's really actually a seed of wisdom behind it all, because people are seeing through the veneer of goals which society has given them as cheap and shallow. But what's lacking there, I think, so often is the faith that there is another path, this intuition of brightness. And that's what this teaching provides us. Ajahn Amaro says what the Buddha gives us is the articulation of supernormal states. And Freud said, the best I can do is change your neurotic misery into normal human unhappiness. And these five indriya are the articulation of how high that bar can go. And so one term is samvega, and it's not, you can't translate it in one word into English. It comes from the root vij, which means awe or trembling. And it's the word, the best description is a story in the suttas of a young aristocrat named Yasa. And he's at, his parents are putting on kind of a party for him, and all the guests fall asleep, and he wakes up in the middle of the night and sees everyone splayed out on the floor, and he sees them all as corpses. He just sees how death is right there, and he is so distraught he wanders out of the house and finds the Buddha in a grove, and he ordains. And so for me, samvega, Ajahn Jeff says it is 3 parts. It has alienation from the goals which formerly had entranced you, a sense of chastisement at our own folly in being so entranced, and a sense of urgency or faith in the other path. And so I think when we speak about those faith and wisdom, it's just such an important, samvega holds both. Like, you see past the goals that have entranced the rest of the world, but you also see something else you can turn towards, and that's the faith. And I think that moment of samvega, of turning, of an intuition of light, is one of the most profound ones in all of our paths. And I think it's a really important term to understand, samvega. Would you say more, Ayya?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to, can you hear me okay? There's a funny incident with Ayya Tathālokā and myself when I was in Anagarika, and I was we were sitting in front of a group of people, and she said, would you explain about the 6 indriyas? And then I just kind of drew a blank, and I said, 6? There's 6 of them? And then, because there are the indriyas, the faculties, there's a lot of different things that are called faculties. So if you, even 5, there's another group of 5. So you have to know what you're talking about. So 6 is a 6th sense basis. But I was like really startled because I was so proud of myself because I knew the 5. I had the 5 memorized, just the list, right? So, but there's so many different avenues in the teaching. But these 5, like Ajahn was saying, they're kind of a powerhouse to lead us forward if we work with them. And the various, how they're balanced, the various strengths, and our character also. What will be more helpful to us? We can see how we can balance them for ourselves. What's needed. If we're more on the wisdom side, then we might. It's hard to cultivate saddha, but putting yourself in a situation even like this, being in a group of people, and hearing the teachings again and again, and then it's kind of a visceral. I think saddha is a visceral kind of a thing that we have to just spontaneously experience. But however we can bring up what's we see lacking in that 5 in ourselves. then that helps us on the path. But just knowing it's also a team, it's not, if one is kind of lagging like with the horses, the other ones can help nudge them along. They're all essential, so not to neglect any of those qualities in developing. So.
And then we should open it up. Okay. We'll open up in just a minute. And so this is an invitation for you to internally, or if you want, you can use your hands. Because as I was listening to Ajahn, I was hearing about, setting the bar higher than just, what was it? What was the phrase? Normal human unhappiness. The Buddha talks about the actual joy. This is a joyful practice. So you can do this in internal evaluation, or you can, the bar is here. And we've got these 5 characteristics kind of internally, and if you wish, you can put your hand up. Where is your confidence in this teaching right now? Is it here, or is it, So I'm not all the way up here. I'm, somewhere in here. And you can do this internally if you wish. Where is your energy as you, this morning? And so I want you to take this home with you. Where's your energy this morning? I had 2 cups of coffee. And where, I'm going to skip to the samadhi. How much stiller are you, or less still are you than you were yesterday at this time? Or, so I'm kind of in a, so I was on the train, so maybe actually I should, and then wisdom. You had the wisdom to show up today, so raise your hand above. Don't sell your self short, but aim high. So knowing. And then our mindfulness. That's what we're doing right now. We're just taking a measure and being mindful of where I'm at. This is not a judgment. This is just am I watching the milestones along the trail? So I do these things like to give myself an experience of, my mindfulness is maybe a little bit low right now. And so I know, oh. So just something you can take with you as a play object to get these faculties in.
Handam mayam dhamma kataya sadhu karam daramase.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami. This is the 2 coffee cup level of faith, apparently. In terms of samvega, there's a great New Yorker cartoon of it's all these pigs lining up at a slaughterhouse, and there's these 2 young pigs trying to climb out a window, and these 2 older pigs are saying, "Kids these days, they can't sit still." And so, harrowing, but truth behind it. So we have a chance for questions and comments. If people just raise their hand, we'll have a mic runner run the mic over to you. And if you're on Zoom, feel free to raise your cartoon hand as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the Dhamma talk. So I've been thinking about trust, and I was reading an article, it was actually on secular Buddhism, and the author made a distinction between faith and trust. And I think he was saying, like, in religion, there's a lot of faith, sort of blind faith, and that he said, we trust quantum mechanics, but we don't understand quantum mechanics, but we trust it because we do experience it. And so I kind of like that distinction, and when we talk about trust, to me, it's based on experience. And I know that we want to trust the process, like in addiction, AA, a lot of times they say trust the process, even though people come into it and they have no trust. So there is a kind of trusting, even though you don't know if it's working, but it's just trust it. And yet I think that trust is so important, to be able to trust something that you don't know if it's working. And so how does that work if people really just say they lack trust?
I think that the inspiration, there's a thing with trusting, there's a kind of semantic association with the words faith because people, the so-called, I'd like to use the word gullible, because I know some blind people that are extremely wise. So a gullible kind of faith, and it's just, but I think there can be, like I was saying, a visceral experience of meeting somebody and not being able to, it's like intellectually you can't, like quantum mechanics, you know, some people know how to work with it and it works, and but it's still kind of mysterious because we can't fully know it, right? But so it's not an intellectual necessarily experience. It can be a heart experience. Like when I first read the Four Noble Truths, it touched my heart in a way. I know this is the truth. There's something in me that really was sparked, or a recognition or something. And then when I first met my first Zen teacher, there was something really different that I couldn't put my finger on. But I sensed it. This is something that you have to have some amount of trust or faith to get started. This is what I was saying earlier, and it's something is going to spark it. Either hearing it, some teaching, or meeting somebody, some recognition. I think there's and that's what that sada is. And the English words, you know, I can take trust. I could be too trusting, also. You know, so faith is usually associated with religion, and then a lot of people have had bad religious experiences because they were sold, you know, some goods that didn't turn out to be what that people were promising. There's these. So if someone is just promising something that you can't be proven, like you can see in oneself. If I've been working with, for instance, the spiritual faculties for a while, or I've been meditating for a while, or contemplating the teachings for a while, and I see, oh yeah, there's a difference here, or I can really understand, like the teaching. There's something that's apparent here and now. Like the Buddha is pointing out something that, like dukkha, and just speaking about suffering or stress or whatever you want to call it, how you want to translate it, in a way that's very understandable. There's some things that are really apparent. I can see the cause of dukkha is very apparent. Craving itself is suffering. So you just to bring up that sada has to be experiential. And it has to be, but we have to want to seek it. You know, we have to be motivated.
On the motivation. Yeah, that word motivation, in coming back to the AA and 12-step, there, in the first part, there's the willingness. And so it's not yet a built-in confidence. And in some 12-step groups, they're like, are you willing to be willing? You know, so it's the steps toward it. And at Passaddhi Vihara, we're using a form of governance with the board and called dynamic governance. And there's a phrase in it that's, it's good enough for now, and it's safe enough to try. So it doesn't have to be a full-on, we're making that total right decision. When I came to Buddhism, I went, I'm going to give this a year. you know, I've got, it seems like there's something here. I'm going to give it a year. And within weeks, I was at the meditation center every day. But I was still giving it a year. So I think we can work our way into that full-on experiential, just with enough willingness to give it a try. And I also did bring a friend in and say, I think you better check it out. Am I joining a cult? So you can also rely on others that you have faith and trust in to help you make wise choices. And she told me, no, it's not a cult. You can leave at any time, but I think they are brainwashing you. And I went, oh no, I think it's something good to wash your brain in. So look for that.
Mary on Zoom?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
We can. Go for it.
Okay. So, for me, the basis of my faith comes from the very first time I heard the Dharma live, went to hear a teacher, and he quoted the Buddha that I didn't have to believe anything anyone said just because they said it. And I felt this immense release because I had grown up in Catholicism and Christianity and had kind of a maybe even tortured relationship with religion. And so when I heard that I didn't have to believe anything, that I could see for myself, this has been a renewing kind of feedback loop that has grown stronger over the years and has really served me well. Thank you.
Can I speak to that, Ayya? Thank you, Mary. And I think just an important sutta to bring up here is MN 95, which is the Chanki Sutta. And there's a very skeptical Brahmin named Bharadvaja who comes to the Buddha and challenges him. And the Buddha says, look, there's these different things which can turn out true or false. Things you take on faith, things you've worked out through logical reasoning, etc. And in each of these situations, you protect truth by saying, I have faith in blank, but I don't yet say only this is true, everything else is false. Or logically, this makes sense to me, but I don't yet say only this is true and everything else is false. So this is epistemological humility, and this is a Buddhist humility of saying, I do have faith in this, and I have reasons behind the faith, behind the saddha, but honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know yet. And the Buddha said the final arrival at truth only happens with full awakening. And that's such a humble thing, and it's useful to note that we don't have to put such weight on that gullible faith at the center of this religion, because the quintessential element of the Buddhist path isn't accepting an article of faith. It's practice. And if you take on saddha as a working, enough faith that you can put something forward as a working hypothesis, I'm going to try this and see what it does to my heart, that's enough to progress. And you can see, as you said, Mary, the feedback. And it's such a gentle approach, and it is different. I think the Abrahamic religions are more faiths, and there's a central article of faith often, whereas Buddhism is an educational system, is how Ajahn Jayasara puts it. And I would say that though we sometimes downplay what that bar of faith can be in terms of just confidence, like Ayya was saying, there's a genuine love and brightening of the heart that word confidence misses, that begins to emerge, and it's one of the more sustaining pieces of the path. And so I think it's important not to constrain saddha to just trust. It also can be kind of the deepest love you've ever felt, towards something. So, yeah.
Are there more questions?
Hi there. Thank you very much. I love the formulation of the 5 faculties, and especially the first 3, the way they're so simple. It's about the realization emerging, You know, it's not like it's constructed emerging. And here in this very difficult, not going to get political, but difficult divisive time where there's people on this side and that side thinking the other one is inherently flawed. I've been really, I don't know, that's why I wanted to ask this question, using this sense of the emerging of wisdom as it's not like you make it up. It emerges when you're mindful, when there's concentration. It just emerges. So, you know, it's like whenever there's someone of the other political persuasion who one tends to demonize because they're wrong, they're concretized, they're evil, I just sort of do an Angulimala on them, and you know, oh, it emerged that this person evolved. So I wonder if you could touch on that. You know, it just seems like no matter whatever side of the political spectrum, they're looking at the other side as inherently flawed and evil. But this is just the opposite. You know, that these qualities emerge. They're not made up. They come up when the practice is done. So it seems to imply there's no evility in anybody, is my thought, and I wonder if you could comment in reference to what you just said.
Well, it emerges through your observation, through your awareness, and also through practice, where I see when I'm hateful, or when hate comes up, or when blaming comes up, how painful that is for me, and then for anyone who's around me. I might be, it's just, and then I look at the suttas, and it says that anger and hatred is like picking up hot coals. So you burn yourself first, and then maybe you're throwing the coals at somebody else, but for sure you're going to hurt yourself. So then, through your observation, the wisdom arises that, painful experience, I need to let it go. And so then we can see things clearly. We can really look at other people and not just see this perception we have of them as evil or whatever. So it's emerging through our experience, for our practice, our observation. It's not entirely passive. We fumble and fumble and fumble and realize we're fumbling, and then we learn how to do things more smoothly and how to direct ourselves in a way that's helpful and wholesome. And then we apply you have to have some application of loving kindness towards ourselves as well as people near to us, and then we're able to, that person that's perceived as an enemy, then we're able to let go of that perception of them and see how things actually are. And yeah, that's really beautiful to use the suttas, the simile, not a simile, but the teaching of Angulimala, how he was so harmful and then he was able to convert and become a monk and eventually an arahant. So, yeah, thank you for that. Yes?
Thank you so much for your talk. I wanted to share a really beautiful experience that we had at Seattle Insight last month. We're doing the Four Noble Truths this year, and the Sunday Sangha, we were talking about the third noble truth of the end of dukkha, and we opened it up to a discussion, and people shared the experience of their practice and how it had changed their lives. And at the end of listening to all of these experiences, the sense of faith in the Dhamma was so strong. And so I just wanted to share that. It was really, we didn't know that's where it was going to go. But everybody was just saying, oh yeah, you know, the way I deal with my kids is different. The way I am at work is different. You know, they really could feel the embodiment of their practice, and the sense of faith was so strong. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's, it can't be forced, certainly. But to have opportunities like that definitely is a way that it may emerge, and so all of them do emerge, like you were saying, but we have to have the conditions to support that emergence. So I think that's also along with that.
Thank you so much. I am sort of drawn to the encouragement that you have to look and learn through develop wisdom through careful study of your thoughts, and also lately interested in what you need to give up. So not just moving to kind of a natural maturity and wisdom, but also maybe from, I think there was a couple references of give up the goals that are culture or that we've developed, like our own personal goals. And so the emphasis on that is interesting to me, and I think the question is, what is the price of practice? It doesn't feel as if I can necessarily naturally become awake at night. Like that, the chant was really harsh. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know about that. But there must be. I mean, it's in there. It's like it's picked for a reason, but it doesn't appeal to me. But I want to use all the methods. So just advice on giving up the goals. And just one more statement that I've been working with is not what I want for life, because I just get beat up by the things that I want that don't happen, but what does life want? What does life want from me? And that kind of gets around the faith a little bit easier for me too, like just what does the world and the emerging life want? So might have meandered a little bit, but just how to give up things.
I'll just say something brief, and then I'll pass it to you. What's occurring to me is that our life is the present moment. So right now, if we can give up, if I'm feeling anxiety, is it really what I need right now? And how can I let go of that? If I'm thinking in the future, how can I do this? How can I do this? But finding that peace right now, and that we're all capable of that. It sounds difficult, but we can let go. This is in this present moment, and just find the beauty and the peace in this moment. And then when we find that beauty and peace in the moment, then we're able to respond to whatever is occurring. But if we're thinking that we're not right now, and I have to do something to fix it, then we're not finding that beauty within ourselves.
As you were speaking, I was remembering that the Buddha too, there's a sutta where he's being asked about practice, and he says, oh yeah, there was the time where my heart did not leap up, and I did not want to, it didn't. Is that Ayyā or Ajahn? Is that when he's speaking with Anuruddha, Kimbala, and Nandya? Okay, yeah. So they're asking about where our practice is going, but then it just kind of fizzles. And he says, well, yeah, me too, the Buddha. Me too. My heart didn't leap up. I read that, or I was working with that, and it didn't leap up. And so we're in good company if we're with Anuruddha, Kimbala, Nandya, and the Buddha. that it didn't, and so there was cultivation that happened. And I also heard when you were talking, that you are already aligning with right intention, and that you can look at the characteristics of right intention and actively cultivate. So you're asking, what do you need to give up? You need to give up harming. Probably you're already doing some of that. I think, we are here. You need to give up the ill will, and so it's a goodwill. And then the third one is the renunciation. And so with the renunciation, that is a gradual training that you go into, and the giving up happens. You can make determinations, but the joy of the renunciation comes over time and over practice. It's developed. Deep end, when you don't yet have the strokes for swimming, the Buddha would tell different monastics, I don't think it's time for you to go into the woods and sit at the base of the tree. Cultivate this. And so it's a gradual training. It's something that the heart begins to leap up, as we practice the renunciation. So don't grab onto a particular sutta or something that is deer in the headlights. You pick the suttas that are warming the heart, and then you move gradually into more and more renunciation. So where do you do this? You go to the Eightfold Path, and that's where you'll find the things you're giving up are harming. The things you're giving up are lying and speech that is harmful. When you get to the right effort, you're looking at balance. What's wholesome and unwholesome. And these are all things that the Buddha was teaching, not because he had it all together at the beginning. It's because he had to say, he said, I pulled my thoughts out and I weighed, is this thought wholesome and helpful or is it not? That is what I give up. So the giving up actually feels really good over time. Do you want to add?
Yeah, when I hadn't read that sutta in a while that we chanted, and I was like, oh, this is going to land interestingly for people. There's a sutta where the Buddha says the beautiful things of the world, sensual fixation is a person's sensual desire. The beautiful things remain as they are in the world, and the wise remain free. And an analogy that's given sometimes is a dog gnawing on a bone, a blood-smeared bone, and all it's tasting, it's its own saliva, and that's the sensual desire the Buddha's talking about, is this fixation and proliferating about X, Y, or Z, and that's just good to give up. Like if you're fixated on the donut tomorrow, can you just say, that's suffering? After a while, it really is, and that's where renunciation, there's a sutta which is very echoes some of this concern, which I think is our culture's concern around nekkhamma, or renunciation, where there's a mendicant who accuses the Buddha of being a destroyer of growth. Basically, like you're just life denying. And the Buddha says, look, do you think the angels envy you any of your worldly pleasures? And he says, no, they have much more refined pleasures. And the Buddha says, even so, the bliss that I experience is such that why would I envy these lower forms of bliss? So we are talking, it's easiest to articulate the coarse pleasures which we give up, but each time you're moving to a more refined, brilliant, happiness, and you see that in people practicing well. There's a sense of lightness, of joy, of agility. It's not a life-denying or numbing path. And Ayya is correct, like part of that is just seeing that going to the movies no longer feels as nourishing as going on a walk with friends, or like, staying an extra 2 hours at the party and getting drunk isn't as fun as like going home and just meditating, or like, the Netflix just leaves you feeling empty, and reading a book actually doesn't. And I call that the sila of simplicity. It's just putting down what no longer is meaningful. And there's a level for actually a certain amount of exploration there. And like, that's why we have the Uposatha today, where one day a week, 8 precepts, like try not eating afternoon, try turning off the phone, try not using entertainment all afternoon. And that gives you a landmark so you can see when you open the hand, what sunlight fills it, when your palate is no longer numb from the taste of Doritos, like what can you actually taste? And so I think like it's fun to experiment with renunciation, like give a try to fasting for a day, see how it is, or stay up a little later, and then sometimes there's just moments where you really can see clearly after a meditation retreat or something, just saying like, I need to give up this friendship. I need to pull back from this relationship. I need to give up drinking, and make a determination from that spot of like, that's where you want to steer from. And then when you're in a lower place where it's a little harder, your sada level's more like 1 cup of coffee or like post-coffee, you have something sustaining you. And so, yeah, renunciation's a very, it's not a very loved term in our culture, but it can be beautiful if held correctly, so. Anything to add to that, Ayya?
I guess I just wanted to come back to, I think we abandon the past, abandon the future, and be really clearly in this moment. And then that helps us with all the rest that everyone, the 2 monastics at either side were expounding that. Because if we're always reaching towards something that we're not, or some goal that's maybe a bar is a little bit too high for us, then we miss what we're having right now. So I think everyone in this room may have given up something to be here. And just recall those kind of things. I'm actually doing it. And that'll help you with experimenting with what if also replacing, like Ajahn was saying, instead of going to a movie, reading some Dhamma, or hearing a Dhamma talk, something like that. So, yeah, thank you both. But this is we have to really appreciate what we have now. So then we can be able to let go.
Let's get a sadhu for that. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.